गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today the question which we're going to answer is, has Xi Jinping lost his belt on the road? Very important question. But let me tell you why belt road I got this. In the army you say, if you lost your belt as an officer or as anyone, you're under arrest or you're out or on your way out. And that is why. And you're on the road out. So there's Belt and Road Initiative, and that's why this cartoon, which I propped up. This Belt and Road Initiative is in the same state and which he is in, without pants. Well, having said that, there is a transition in China. It's happening for many reasons. And it's coming down on us faster than we think. And I don't think China itself is prepared for it. There is intrigue in China. There is a lot of issues happening in China. We all know that, we've discussed it. But what is it that should worry us? Why is it happening? How is it happening? These are the things which I will put, because there's no definite thing that, look, this is happening in China. In USA, it's the president who first tells you. Mr. Trump will tell you what's happening. Okay. And in a country like India, the opposition will tell you what's happening. And, there are channels of communication which are meant for each country to put out what happens, but never in China. And especially after the CCP has come in. We all know that they built firewalls. Whatever happens behind these firewalls, very rarely we know the truth of the whole story. But based on certain indications, certain leaks, you come to know that, look, there is something happening, and you can guess the broad contours of this. Why did I start this? Well, sometime last week, we heard that Xi Jinping had vanished. Then he resurfaced after a couple of weeks, after about 14 days. And he had a meeting with Lukashenko, who's the Belarus president. And that meeting took place in Xi Jinping's private house, not as a state thing. And they went, and nothing came out of it. Not even except a photograph in Xinhua. Nothing else came. Nothing happened. Then everything is hunky-dory type, cool. Xi Jinping comes, he speaks to Trump, phone call. And some anodyne statements come out. Till 2 days back, I saw a video by one of the people who keep watching China and who got their ear to the ground on China. They say, look, Xi Jinping is in trouble. And there's a transition government which has been put in place. He's just a figurehead. He's being eased out and all that. Till yesterday, I got a link, which gave me some hard thing to build this topic. So let's start with that. There's one in a Telegram channel. You can also see it. It's called General SVR. This is that SVR. Put General SVR and it'll come out. It's all in Russian, so you have to translate it and have a look. So, and a couple of messages in that channel which this guy has put out, whoever he is. It's basically to do with Iran and Israel conflict. But in that one paragraph, he had said, this is important. He says, over the weekend, the Politburo received a report from the SVR, which claims that Chinese leader Xi Jinping suffered a heart attack on the night of May 25th, 26th. That's the time when he was out of circulation. Okay. And 2 more heart attacks last week. Some call it heart attacks, some call it angina attacks, whatever. That means he's not well. And this fact corroborates with earlier instances where he disappeared and he was seen to be tottering and all that. And he says the report also claims that part of the Chinese leadership has already decided to remove Xi Jinping from power. So there's a positive thing now he's saying. And of course, when you go to Lee's Real Talk or China Observer or all those guys who keep watching China and have nothing else to do, some paid, some unpaid, some motivated, unmotivated. Or they say someone from Australia has given it out, some Chinese observer has given it out. Anything. I couldn't get a handle. This is the first thing I got a handle. I said, okay, let's see. Right. It is separately noted that the forces close to the Chinese leader will do everything possible to keep him in power. He is also indicating that, after all, Xi Jinping has been in power for about 10 years, 11 years now. 2012 he took over. 13 really, 12 years. So he's also got his roots entrenched. So it's not going to be just a shakedown and someone shakes and leaves fall type. No, Xi Jinping's faction will not quit in a hurry. That's very clear, and that so there's a struggle, right? And then this is again interesting. This is connected to Israel, Iran, but has got its thing. Yeah. Putin, during communication with Trump, carefully offers his mediation and promotes conditions favorable to the US, but categorically unacceptable to Iran. On the other hand, together with the Chinese comrades, the Russian leadership encourages Tehran to reject the conditions proposed by Washington and even the agreed compromises. So, what he says is Putin is playing a double hand, this way and that way. That is confirmed now from my good friend John Helmer, but that's a different story. I'll talk of it maybe tomorrow morning. We'll get back to Iran and Israel tomorrow morning. Right. We must give credit where it is due. Such a policy brings in results because he's playing both sides of the equation. But the weak link in this is the chain of intrigues is the health of Chinese leader of Xi Jinping. So this has come 2 days in a row. According to the information from reports received by the Politburo, a change of power is possible in China. And new comrades are likely to be more liberal than Xi and company, which means that China and the West will find points of agreement on critical issues to the detriments of interests of Russia and Iran. So the new angle is follows opened up. So the new dispensation might be aligned with the West, or is it been nudged by the West, or it's been nudged by USA? Is USA's hand there? We don't know. At this point of time, we really don't know. Okay. So we don't know what's the story, but we know that something is on. So what I'm going to do today is we will go over, and how do I put it? We will go the history of power struggles in China. I'll start from 1900. I can go beyond, but we'll start from 1900 and outline. We'll see how the power struggles pan out in China, and then say if there's a power struggle on, how is it likely to pan out in China? Now, from there, I'll not go whether it is US instigated or Russian instigated or self instigated. We'll go by a broad set of ideas. Okay. All right. So let's go back to 1900. That's why I said I'll start in 1900. 1900, something called the Boxer Rebellion took place, right? In the Qing dynasty or the Qing dynasty, where people rebelled against, it was basically anti-Christian kind of a rebellion. This went on for about 11 years. And by 1911, the Qing dynasty collapsed. Okay. 1912, China declared itself as a republic under Sun Yat-sen. And he was the first president. All fine so far. Sun Yat-sen, a great thinker, and incidentally, Chiang Kai-shek and Mao, both were his students, both were his chelas. He founded the Nationalist Party, and that is Kuomintang, KMT, which is today in Taiwan, right? But he didn't want power and he didn't have good health, so he gave up power to Yuan Shikai. Now, Yuan Shikai wanted to revive the monarchy, but he failed and he died. Okay. In this, the whole control of KMT, this, that, everything went for a toss. So from 1916 to 1925, it's called the Biang period, or the period of the warlords. So China was completely shattered, spread, war. So this is not the doing of any outside thing. It is their own internal issues. Okay. So you see this, it's a period of 25 years from Boxer Rebellion to 1925. Internal problems. Though Xi Jinping says a period of shame and intervention, past century of humiliation and all that, their problem is theirs, internal. Okay. So for about 9 years, 1916 to 25, you had this warlordism in China. They were fighting amongst themselves, killing each other, everything. Instability. So you see this instability for a quarter of a century. It is in this period that 1921 CCP is founded with the help of Soviet Russia, which was the fount of communism at that point of time. 1925, Sun Yat-sen died. He died of cancer. And then Chiang Kai-shek assumes command of the KMT. And he assumes, he forms the nationalist government. He unifies by force. He was a dictator. Okay. And he purges everyone. He purges the communists in particular. And that is when Mao and Chiang Kai-shek followed. Okay. And 1928, this whole struggle took 3 years, mind you. Proper nationalist government under Chiang Kai-shek is established. And he starts his own story. I'll not go into that. And that is the start of the ROC, Republic of China, which Sun Yat-sen had said. So now that Republic of China is where? Taiwan. ROC. Okay. Around this time, or in fact a little before that, the moment Sun Yat-sen died, the long march started of communists. At that time, Mao was not a great guy in the communism, but by another 10 years, 30, 33, 34, Mao had started and he had taken over reins. By 1931, Japan invades China and colonizes China. And they continued to be there from 31 to 45 till the end of Second World War. Then you'll see stories of rape of Nanjing, this, that, and the Japanese were merciless towards China. Until date, people in China are worried about that. If they're worried, China are mortally scared of one thing, it is revival of Japan. A militaristic Japan is a mortal problem for them. There are two things in China which Chinese are very scared of. One is Japanese. The second is famine. Chinese by nature are very scared of going hungry because along with all this chaos, a lot of people died by famine in China. And the last famine was created by Mao, okay, in which 30 million people died. There was a famine under Chiang Kai-shek also, where about 10 million people died. Even before that, with every transition, there was famines. That's why Xi Jinping often says he needs an iron bowl in his hand. The rice iron bowl has to be in his hand. That's why one of the biggest problems the Chinese look at is food security. Food security is psychologically important for them, which many of us don't understand. Okay, and that food security comes from fundamental grains. They have a problem. Anyway, we'll come to that later. So this 1925 to 35, the Long March starts. It's a process. It didn't happen overnight. The Long March went on for a long, long, long time. 1937, the Kuomintang and CCP joined hands to fight the Japanese, and they did. They did, and ultimately Japan lost. The Chinese collaborated or cooperated with the allies, with the West, with Americans. In fact, the Chinese helped the Americans in the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All that is there. Okay. But when the Second World War ended, the civil war in China started between Mao, that is between the CCP and the KMT. Look, what I'm saying is giving you the outline of what the struggles are. And that, CCP, the civil war lasted about 3 years. 1 minute. Yeah, it lasted about 3 years, 46 to 49. Okay. It was in 49 that Chiang Kai-shek was driven to Taiwan and the Mao took over. Right. So you see from 1900 to 1949, almost 50 years, a period of struggles. At no point of time was power transition easy in China. Right from the collapse of the Qing Empire or Qing dynasty, to the collapse of the warlordism, to the takeover of the nationalists, to the civil war, to the Japanese occupation, and then to, ultimately the PRC taking over. So from PRC taking over, there is one kind of stability, that is the stability of the fact that the Chinese ruled, or the Communist Party of China ruled China. But was it the end of their strife or transition of power? No. Look, Mao, from 46 to 76, he ruled China with an iron hand. Okay? We know the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, this, that, all that. A lot of people died. He went to war with Korea. He went, right? But he kept. But there were a whole lot of purges to keep himself alive. He and his power alive. He purged China as a whole in the Cultural Revolution. Right? And also he purged his complete CMC, ye, wo, sabko. And he was very clear the party had to control the gun, and he was the gun. He controlled the PLA. Because he controlled the PLA, he controlled the party. In fact, he made the PLA what it is: a peasants' army, a revolutionary army, army of the masses. He was the one who said, let the 1,000 flowers bloom type. Power flows from the barrel of the gun. So his rule, 30 years, was stable from the fact that there was only one government, but it was highly cathartic to China. It impoverished China. Right. The moment he died, there was a power struggle. The Gang of Four came in. His wife, who wanted to continue his legacies, but these chaps were arrested very soon. And a consensus candidate came out. He was handpicked as his successor, Wu Guofeng. He tried to continue with his policies. Okay, and here comes Deng Xiaoping. Look, 76, this happens. So, okay, now 78, reform and opening up start. Why? He's sidelined. He's sidelined, and political, thought of Mao is being now ejected. 2 years. So, you see, every transition of power and every transition of a thought process in China takes time. It's not like India, कि भाई लोकसभा इलेक्शंस हो गए और मोदी जी को मेजॉरिटी मिल गया, चलो भाई कल से मोदी जी इन everyone else out. और मोदी जी हैज नॉट गॉट 400 सीट, अब के बार 400 पार खत्म हो गया, 284 ही मिला है, ये वो. He has to make the coalition. but survive. So with compromises, all that doesn't happen in China. It's all up, one or out, or zero or one. It's a binary. So Hua Feng is, eased out. Who eases him out? Deng Xiaoping. Okay, right. Now it is Deng Xiaoping that he comes 1978, right, and he becomes a hero. Now he puts in Hu Yaobang as the general secretary and Zhang Jiang as the uh, second general secretary after Hu Yaobang. And incidentally, both these guys are sacked by Deng Xiaoping in this time only. So one chap is from 1981 to 1987, the other chap is 1987 to 1989. He puts them in as the general secretary of the party. Deng Xiaoping does not become the general secretary of the party. Now we'll talk of Deng Xiaoping because this is an interesting case study. The whole story is actually in some form repeating in China. We have to understand. Deng Xiaoping was himself purged by Mao in the period 67 to 69. He was considered a rival to Mao, so he is purged. But Zhou Enlai and he were close, so Zhou Enlai reinstates him and made him the deputy prime minister. Okay. 75, he becomes the vice chairman of the party central committee and a member of the Politburo. Politburo is the 25 people on top. Okay, and chief of general staff. So he comes back into prominence. As Mao is fading out, this fellow is clawing his way up slowly. Right. And he is now being seen as the successor to Zhao, not to Zhou Enlai, not to Mao. But Mao, before Mao dies, Zhou Enlai dies in 1976 in January. The moment Zhou Enlai dies, Gang of Four comes and takes over because by then Mao was virtually in his last thing. By the end of the year, September, Mao dies. Gang on Four is in full grip. Deng by then also has his own thing, and he was very cunning. Okay, so by then Deng had been rehabilitated, so he gets that Gang war for arrested and accepts Hua Guofeng as the successor, and then he manipulates Hu Guofeng and he throws him out and gets Hu Yaobang, and later he takes Hu Yaobang out and gets Zhao Ziyang. So all these manipulations keep happening because there are no elections, no nothing. Everything is almost dictatorial. So if you see from there chronologically, everyone is manipulating. And interesting, this is where the whole story becomes interesting because when you examine what's happened in the Deng period, it is almost repeating itself now. Deng did not hold any of the. In fact, he was never the general secretary of the party, nor was he the president of China. Incidentally, what was he? He was part of the standing committee of the Politburo. That is one of the 7 in the Politburo. At times the Politburo is 7, at times it has been 9. Right? But he was the chairman of the Central Military Commission. He had this Central Military Commission under his control. Like Mao controlled the PLA, Deng Xiaoping controlled the PLA. While the political entity said the party must control the gun, actually the gun controls the party. And this is the interchange which you keep seeing in China, and it is repeating itself. So you control the party through the gun. So Deng Xiaoping controlled the party through the gun. He controlled China through the gun. He was also vice chairman of the CCP, but that is irrelevant. His most irrelevant thing is this. He retained control of the armed forces by virtue of his being chairman of the CCP's Central Military Commission, CMC. That's the crux. So he put in Jiang Zemin followed by Hu Jintao. But the interesting, both were his proteges. Jiang Zemin was a hardliner. Hu Jintao was more of a reformer. The interesting thing is that both these chaps were never given the chairmanship of the CMC in the beginning. It was only later they got the chairmanship of the CMC. Deng Xiaoping continued to control China, though Jiang Zemin was the president and general secretary of the party through the PLA. Jiang Zemin did the same thing to Hu Jintao, but Hu Jintao took power earlier. And then, of course, when Hu Jintao finished, Xi Jinping took over. He was given everything because the situation in China was bad by then. Everyone said, look, we have to go back to the Mao era while opening up. So you see this struggle to retain primacy of the party, so there are two struggles constantly going on. One, the leader has to struggle to hold on to his power. Second, the party has to struggle to hold on to power. Both these are concomitant and parallel, and that's coming back to haunt them now. Xi Jinping started following Deng Xiaoping's footsteps. He throughout embraced Mao. Then he wanted to kill both and become bigger than them with his Xi Jinping thought. Xi Jinping thought will be the guiding principle for China through ages. And what and everyone thought that his thought was too early in his career. He got it within 2 years of his taking over. He came out of this Xi Jinping thought, and he said, look, this is what China should follow. And people have not normalized this. There's always been a clash between Maoist principles and Deng's opening up. So, the whole thing couldn't run on parallel lines. And that's where Xi Jinping started losing control. And that's haunting him now because the economy fell apart under him. And it was exacerbated by COVID. Okay. And this, of course, is the defining point. When Hu Jintao was removed. Have a look at this video again because this is a thing which we need to keep seeing. Virtually in this, you see that, Hu Jintao is refusing to go, but he's pulled up, taken out. He wanted to see what's the list. In that list, I'll come to that guy who he wanted to see his name. So the Hu Jintao people are all thrown out. And he told Xi Jinping in this, I'm going to sort you out. And he packed Li Keqiang. This chap is Li Keqiang on his shoulder and goes. Okay. In doing all this, Xi Jinping put his seal of authority at that point of time. But in China, nothing, fades. By doing this, Xi Jinping created a powerful faction against him. And then you have to go back to the 19th Politburo. The whole story, what is happening today, you have to understand the 19th Politburo. I explained this to you earlier, but I'll explain again. The current Politburo is the 20th Politburo. We'll not talk of that. We'll talk of the 19th Politburo because that is the important thing. So in this, you see Li Keqiang was the vice prime minister or the prime minister of China at that point of time. Okay, he was given the red card and said, "You go." And later he was killed, or he died under suspicious circumstances. in a swimming pool about 2 years back. Just after COVID, he was out. Then this guy Wang Yang, he was taken out. These two chaps were also taken out. All these three were taken out, but Wang Yang is back in the picture now. Okay. These two guys, Wang Huning and Zhao Liji, they were retained. So these two chaps were retained in the 20th Politburo. Right. That was the Politburo Standing Committee which I showed you. Now these guys are the rest of the Politburo. In the rest of the Politburo, these three chaps, Li Qiang, Li Ji, and Deng Junxing, was taken up into the Standing Committee of the Politburo. Okay. Zhang Yuxia, who was part of the Politburo, remains in the Politburo. He is not in the Standing Committee of the Politburo. Zhang Yuxia at that point of time was retiring. But Xi Jinping said, you please continue because the PLA has problems. We have to expand. I need a steady hand. And Zhang Yuxia and Xi Jinping were good friends. So even Sai Chi. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. From the 19th Politburo became the head, got into the 20th, the current Politburo Standing Committee. Okay. These are the guys. Now the story which is emerging, and I'll come to that. Right. Before that, this guy, Hu Junhua, he was Hu Juntao's protege and he was Li Kechan's successor, or supposed to be his successor. Okay. He was unceremoniously thrown out. Everyone thought he'll get a promotion into the Politburo Standing Committee. It didn't happen. Now he's been waiting in the winds. So he, Wang Yang, Hu Jintao, they're all out of favor, but they're there they form a faction, and that faction is now coming up back. Okay, as per reports, all these guys, well, Xi Jinping, Li Qiang, Zhao Liji, Wang Huning, and Sai Chi, they'll all go out, but they will retain Deng Junxiang and Li Ji as part of for continuity or whatever. That's a story which is coming out. One doesn't know whether it's right or wrong. Okay, right. Now we'll see the travails of Xi Jinping with the military. 4 months back, this list comes out with photographs of China's disgraced generals, and it comes out in Caxin. What is Caxin? It's an economic magazine. I don't know why it comes out in economic magazines, but that's the way China operates. So what do they say in that? 14 full generals, 20 lieutenant generals, and 50 major generals sacked by Xi Jinping over a period of time. This gets highlighted. It very clearly indicated then itself that there's a major problem between PLA and Xi Jinping. The gun wanted to control the party wanted to control the gun. This is not a new thing which is happening. Who are the guys who've been sacked? It's very interesting. 3 ministers of defense, 3 CMC members, vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, retired, Central Military Commission deputy directors of equipment development, because a lot of things of corruption, this, that, all that. Former Minister of General Logistics Department, PLARF, the rocket force, which was supposed to be Xi Jinping's pet, wholesale sackings. Commanders, former commanders, deputy commanders, heads of armament department, everyone. Okay, former PLARF commanders, PLA deputy commanders. I mean, the work, Southern Theatre Commander, Eastern Theatre Commander, Northern Theatre Commander, everyone. All these chaps, the SSF, the Special Strategic Support Force, that head is also sacked. This is going on. There are a lot of problems. That is right. Now, the whole thing boils over till about a month back when this thing came out that Xi can't trust his own military. He can't trust his own military because the leadership is gone. It's gone against him. All that. November onwards, the whole thing has taken a different turn altogether. Here, last year, Li Shangfu was dropped and out. And Li Shangfu was Zhang Yuxia's protege for whatever reason. Come November, Mia he is dropped. He Xi Jinping screws his tail, out comes a whole story. When the whole story comes, Zhang Yuxia leaps in and he takes out the other Central Military Commission vice chairman. He Widong is dead. So now the CMC is a lame duck operation. But very clearly, Zhang Yuxia has the reins. He's gone against Xi Jinping. Now there are news of extended Politburo meetings and special meetings where it was held, and there was a triangular discussion between Xi Jinping and Zhang Yuxia and Hu Jintao, because Hu Jintao comes, all these chaps are got together by Hu Jintao and some discussion takes place. Now, what is emerging is that these three chaps are now in the transition government. This chap is Zhang Yuxia, this chap is Hu Chunhua, and this chap is Wang Yang. From whatever one can gain from rumors which have come out, these are all largely rumors. Wang Yang is a reluctant entry back because he's not sure about Zhang Yuxia because they've not had great equation. And Zhang Yuxia and Xi Jinping are fundamentally friends. Hu Junhua is supposed, as per Hu Jintao, is the next guy. But they need to have a transition because as per their party constitution and all this transfer of power really takes place with the party congress. And that party congress is in 27. It's not now. 2 years, 2.5 years away. What do they do for this 2.5 years? Continue with Xi Jinping as a figurehead and give him an easy entry out, or put him in jail, or he dies. Because does he have a heart attack? Sometimes they say heart attack, sometimes they say brain tumor. Now, when so many rumors come out, there's some dal mein kala hai. And the fact that half your CMC is gone, that there is a problem in the CMC. And major thing which is going on Israel, Iran, no major statement comes out of China. And China is in huge economic pain. We know that also. So they're economically silenced. And there's a power struggle on. Who will give what? Why China is not taking, it's supposed to be a superpower. Why is it not taking a stand? It's not taking a stand because we don't know what to do. Okay. They don't know what to do because who's in power there? Some people say Lukashenko went. I told Lukashenko last week went from Belarus to China to meet. He is the last outside president who's met Xi Jinping so far. It's not very far back, but 15 days back. Now, there is a rumor which says Putin sent him to see whether Xi Jinping was alive or not. Okay, to see what's the status. Because now Putin... And then you see, because China, and you see what the general SVR said, because China is playing a weak hand, Putin is changing his story. Okay, now forget about all that. Let's talk of these three chaps. Who controls whom in this? Is Zhang Yuxia making his own play? Will he support Hu Chunhua next after 2 years? No, they say that, look, it will be that, Wang Yang will become the general secretary of the party. This chap will become the prime minister or rather premier. And what about this man? He'll let the central commission go, military commission go. He'll not. So who controls China, the gun or the party? The party controls the gun or the gun controls the party? If Zhang Yuxia could let his old buddy Xi Jinping down, why will he not let these chaps down? It's logical, isn't it? Power. This is a power struggle. And it is not as if this doesn't have a military trying to, grab power. It's not new. Go back to Mao's times, Lin Biao. Lin Biao was Mao's number 2 or the head of the PLA. He wanted to upstage Mao. When Mao came to know of him, he wanted to sort out Lin Biao. Lin Biao took a plane and went off, and that plane crashed and he died with his wife. After that plane crash and that whole incident weighs so heavily on these chaps that Xi Jinping, I believe, for many times he has stopped using planes. He goes by train. And this guy is reluctant. Wang Yang, from whatever this thing, is reluctant. He's not made a statement. He's not come out, yeah, whoa, but a lot of behind the scenes activity going on. So, what does it tell you? What does it tell you? It tells you that China is entering a period of instability, political instability. History is repeating itself. If you think that there's going to be a peaceful transition in China, it will not happen. Please understand. Also, whatever the transition is happening or not happening, even if it doesn't happen, China is in trouble. Look, let me put it this way. It's also possible that Xi Jinping is quite okay. All these rumors are false of heart attack, all that. And he screws all these chaps and continues. If he continues, then he'll be the sole power. He'll ruin China even more. There'll be even more instability. Whichever way the dice rolls, I see instability in China. It doesn't matter who comes in now. There will be instability for the next 3-4 years. Because if there's a change, it's a transition government. A transition government don't give policy. But then what is the policy? Is it driven by USA? West? How will they change the course? And we know there's a demographic problem. Forget about what is happening in the trade war to USA, US. Yesterday only I spoke on P Gurus that Trump might herald a US decline. I still maintain that. But whether that happens or not, China will not recover. China is getting screwed equally badly or in fact worse in the trade war. So their economy will not revive in a hurry. They are losing influence. They have not been able to do anything. Their arms and equipment have been shown out in, Op Sindur. Their PLA is in mess. They are internally in thing. Of course, demography, Sham ko we'll discuss why China is declining and 10 reasons for Chinese decline today evening. I mean, this Israel-Iran war can wait a bit. Okay. Let me move ahead. Look, this decline, will it follow the USSR model or the China's model? Is the Chinese model following the USSR model? These are the things. And I'll discuss it again today evening with a little more in detail. Or is it following the Japanese model? I showed this earlier. When the Japanese bubble burst, this is the blue one. This was where Japan went. No, it's only now gone above. This is the red line is the Chinese line. The Chinese bubble has burst here and it is going down. If you take this graph here and transpose it here and see, China has a long way to go down. It's, and I explained this earlier also in one of my things. I'll do a separate podcast on the China model and the USSR model in detail because I have more of Japanification of China. So we don't know whether China is going the USSR way or the Japanese way or both in a hybrid mode. That's the danger. So what is the net result of all this nonsense? Instability. How does it affect us? We need to think. We're going to have an unstable China on our border. That unstable China will not, won't be able to stand up to USA. In which case, USA and Trump will keep riding high. notwithstanding what's happening. So you will find which I said earlier. Will USA start externalizing due to its internal problems? And China starts internalizing? You have a different paradigm coming up in the global system. And we're going to discuss this. I feel there's a completely new paradigm coming up. And in that new paradigm, neither is China good for us nor is USA good for us. We have to seek different directions. That's my view, but I'll get others, let them give their view. And then, I'm not saying we'll make an informed decision. Who am I to make a decision? I'm here only trying to analyze based on what I study. Okay, right. A few things I thought I'll clarify. I'll not go into this. Like I said, we'll see how it goes. Around this, about this Israel-Iran war, as of today, nothing much is happening. They're only trading blows. Few issues will come up. We'll discuss it tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we'll get back to Israel-Iran war. Today, we'll dedicate it to China, because Israel is going about things systematically. But one important thing which has happened, which I mentioned yesterday in the morning, but didn't follow it up. SCO gave out a statement. It says the member states of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization expressed serious concern over the escalating tensions in the Middle East and strongly condemned the military strikes carried out by Israel on the territory of the Islamic Republic of Iran on 13 June. Now, we are part of SCO. So we have refuted it. India has said no. SCO has issued a statement on recent developments between Israel and Iran. And it is very clear, it said India's own position on the matter has been articulated by us on 13 June and remains the same. We urge that channels of dialogue and diplomacy be utilized to work towards de-escalation, and it is essential that the international community undertake endeavors in that direction. Okay, so the External Affairs Minister too discussed this matter with his Iranian counterpart yesterday and conveyed deep concern XYZ. Okay, why am I talking of this? I'm sorry. Why am I talking of this? Look, this statement from the SCO itself is weird. Why should it come at this point of time the way it has come? Why should SCO presume, without consulting India, that this can happen? Obviously, there's loss of control. Even Putin is not for this. Like I said, what I showed you in the beginning, Putin is playing with Trump and he's playing with Iran. After all, Iran and Russia have a strategic partnership. He's letting them down. In fact, he's saying. And China has given this statement. Putin has not refuted it. Russia has not refuted it. It's only we have refuted it. So in this triangle between Russia, China, and India, there's a shift. A lot of things are happening. Which means China is not doing its homework. They think they've taken everyone for granted. It means not enough thought is being given. We are living in interesting times. While we are looking at Israel, Iran, Pakistan, war, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact what's happening in China, which I still feel is the most consequential thing which can happen to us.